Welcome in, Knicks Nation. The streets are buzzing tonight. Welcome in John Schmeelk to join us with this preview of Game 2, recap Game 1. The New York Knicks, Indiana Pacers. The playoffs are buzzing right now. John, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, always good to be with you, man. Always love talking Knicks, especially when we're rocking with a 1-0 lead in the Eastern Conference semis. I mean, come on.
Big time games, man. How's your health doing? How's your heart doing
Ha!
after some of these finishes? Because you've been in the building, right? Just describe what you went through.
Yeah, I mean, my gosh, I've been there for all the home games, and it's something, man. I mean, I've been going with my buddy who I split my season tickets with, and it doesn't matter what happens. And a lot of Nick fans got annoyed by Nick Nurse. Oh, that series could have gone any way in round one, but in a lot of ways, he was right. Like it doesn't really seem to matter what happens in the first 45 minutes of these games. The last 3 minutes, it's going to be a one or two possession game, and whichever team makes the biggest shots at the end of the game is going to win. And for the Knicks, fortunately, they have Jalen Brunson. He's been the best player to close out games for the most part in these first 7 games of the playoffs that the Knicks have played in. And yeah, I mean, you went from game two was one of the better sporting events I've ever been to against the Sixers. It was just off the charts. Like you almost didn't believe what you were seeing. Game five was just as bad with how that thing ended. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And then of course you would game one against Indiana where the Knicks it's hard to say a number 2 seed stole one from a number 6 seed, but that's kind of what it felt like with the way that game ended.
Yeah, I mean, not just seeding, but the second round now. If you get to the second round, you deserve to be there, and you can certainly steal one. And I've always said, John, winning the first game of a series is the easiest to steal. It's pre-adjustments. It's kind of the road team coming in with house money and all of that. Is that what you got the feeling with the Pacers? Because I really feel like they felt confident.
Yeah, and I felt like too the Knicks are coming off such an emotional 6 game series against Philly. It's easy to let down, I think, in that first game of the next series. We've seen that before. So I think that's part of it too. And you're right. I think it's going to take the Knicks some adjusting to get used to the way the Pacers run their offense. Because to their credit, their offense is really good, man. Like it's pretty. They have good actions. They run their pick and roll in creative ways. They have different movements off of it. They do the double screen. They do the Spain pick and roll with the backside pick on the center. They handle Nick switches. They handle Nick shows and get backs. They handle Nick traps. They did a really good job. So the Knicks are going to take some time here, I think, to adjust to what they're going to do. I think you have to trust Tom Thibodeau that he'll figure out a way. But yeah, I think that first game for the top seed is always dangerous, especially coming off an emotional series to lose. So that's why it was really important for the Knicks to come away with that first game with a win. I think now Indiana's win 4 out of 6 games, which I think is going to be very tough for them.
Yeah, most definitely. Winning the first one was a great lead into to what the Knicks can do now in terms of winning one on the road and ending it early. But look, we got to sort of lead into the first round win, John. They had a chance to end it in 5 and give the Knicks 5 days rest as opposed to 3 days rest. Do you feel like now with this news of Mitchell Robinson and the longer this series can go, how much do you think the Knicks missed that opportunity to get that extra rest?
I mean, I don't know if it matters. I mean, with the way this team goes, man. I mean, I guess 2 days would have helped. I mean, Mitch obviously was dealing with they call it a stress injury. I mean, I think that's common parlance for a stress fracture, which is probably why they have to be so cautious with it. If it's from the same ankle he had surgery on, so you got to be careful with that. I don't think the rest would have helped him, and I don't think this early in the series we know how much an extra day or two would have helped the Brunson, a Josh Hart, a Dante DiVincenzo. And this is a common thing I've been getting from Nick fans on social media and Twitter. I can't believe he's not playing Alec Burks. I can't believe he didn't play Precious more minutes. I can't believe the rotation's so short. And going into this series, even with Mitch healthy, I was open to playing Precious, and I was open to playing Alec Burks even the first game 8 to 10 minutes. See how he does. Just stick him in the corner on offense. Don't let him initiate, run the offense or anything. I think they'd be fine. But you look at it from Tom Thibodeau's perspective. At what point have either of us seen fatigue be an issue for the Knicks late in games? they outplay their opponent consistently at the end of games. And the last two games against Philly in game 6 and then against the Pacers in this game, the minute they went to Deuce McBride, they were terrible. I mean, Deuce McBride got cooked by TJ McConnell repeatedly. Precious, I don't think it was his fault. I don't like the idea of pairing him with Mitch. I just think it hurts the offense too much. That didn't work particularly well either. And the bench wasn't good in the final game against the Sixers either. Spare for that one, I think Deuce hit a 3 late in that game, right in the fourth quarter. That was big. But otherwise, he missed, 0-4, I think, in the first half of that game in game 6. So if you're Tom Thibodeau and you're not seeing the extra few minutes a game, instead of playing 38 minutes, you're playing 44 minutes, right? He's not seeing that have an adverse effect on the team. So why would you go away from it in a series, in a playoff run here, where literally every point has mattered? They beat the Sixers in 6 games. They outscored them by 1 point in 6 games. If you have Brunson off the floor for an extra 4 or 5 minutes over the course of the last 3 games of that series, the Knicks might lose 2 of those games. That's not going, that's basic analysis. I mean, it's not a stretch here. So I think what Thibodeau is seeing is that, look, you don't have back-to-backs right now. You have a day off in between every game. Is there really a difference between Dante DiVincenzo playing 43 minutes versus playing 38 minutes? Is that 5 minutes on the court that much difference? You're getting more commercial breaks and timeouts because it's the playoffs, and that's what you get with TV. So you're getting more rest for the guys that way. And again, I'm okay with playing the guys, but I'm just looking at it from Tom Thibodeau's standpoint, where these games are all so close. Your bench has not performed. You lost Bogdanovich, who was one of your better bench players early on in the Sixers series. He's gone now too. So I understand why he's so hesitant, especially when they keep winning, to going away from the shortened rotation where Josh Hart is grabbing hustle rebounds playing 48 minutes with 30 seconds to go. DiVincenzo's hitting 28-foot threes. If he's tired, he's played 40. If he's tired and he's got no legs, is he hitting that 3 late? He's not. Jalen Brunson scored 20 fourth quarter points. Did he look tired to you? He looked tired to me. A couple turnover scares late, but is that fatigue? I don't know. I don't think that's fatigue. So I get what he's doing. I understand the people that are nervous about it, but I understand the thought process and where Tom Thibodeau's coming from.
Yeah, I'm with you on that in terms of who can he bring in that's really going to impact the ball game. And look, there's 11 more wins, and you're lifting the Larry O'Brien. So it's like,
what do you rest him for, right?
Yeah, if you're going to go down, you go down with your best players. I get that. But here's what I want to do. I want to find a fine balance between getting that 8th man in there, which was Precious Achiuwa, for that little bit of breather. But look, OG should be more fresher because he's missed a lot of the season. It will affect some guys more than others, John. Brunson obviously
he's the one guy I'm worried about. I think you made a good point. I'm not worried about DiVincenzo. I'm not worried about Hart. Brunson's dealt with this. So I think with his offensive load, he was better the last 2 games. Thibodeau, remember, he rested him for those 2 minutes, I think from the 8 to 6 minute mark in that game 6 against the Philly. I think those are actually, and they were -4 in those 2 minutes, by the way. But I think it was very important to get him those 2 minutes to finish the game quick. So I do think you can't have Brunson go 48. All right. You just can't. You got to give him a couple, 2-3 minutes each half. But OG's one guy I do worry about with the injury history, and I think we've even seen the last couple of games, he hasn't been nearly as good on the glass. He's given up some offensive rebounds that I don't think his rebounding has been quite as strong as it's been in other games. So I do think, and I agree with you, I would have, maybe given OG some rest with Precious out there, but now it becomes even tougher. So, but I agree. That's the one guy I do worry about in terms of the extra minutes is OG. The other guys I don't have so much of a concern about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if Burks or Shake Milton were going to get in, he would have tried them a little bit more down the stretch of the regular season and the first series as well. But like I said, now we're getting
Shake
so
Milton's
close.
not playing. Burks maybe. Shake Milton ain't playing.
He's not playing. I like his defense more than Burks. That's just me, but I don't see it happening, like you said, John. But this latest news, we've got to address that fully now, John. Mitchell Robinson out. Just give your thoughts on that and what Mitch has given to come back from the season he's had and what the impact he had in Series 1 and moving forward.
And by the way Thibodeau operates too, just real quick on this, if they keep winning, he ain't changing. Like coming off a loss, and we saw that against Philly, right? They lost the game, and then all of a sudden you're changing the matchups on Maxey, right? You're shifting guys around, you're putting different guys on him, and you change your strategy a little bit. But I think if they keep winning, I don't think he's going to change. If they lose, then maybe you might see someone else get some more time. We'll switch some patterns up, things like that. You can argue whether or not that's the right way to do it, but it is what it is. As for Mitch, first of all, it's terrible for him. I mean, he worked so hard to get back. He's been playing on one leg since Embiid fell into his ankle in, I think that was game 2 of the Sixers series, game 1, whatever it was. I don't think it was the pull in the leg on the dunk. I think it was the play a couple possessions later when Embiid kind of rolled into his ankle and his leg. So I feel terrible for Mitch, and I think long term, for the dream of beating the Celtics and going to the finals, I think this is it's maybe the coffin's not sealed yet, but it's another nail that's being kind of put into that dream because you just how many more guys are going to go out? And I feel for Mitch, and they might not have beaten the Sixers without him, right? His defense on Embiid in a couple of those games, his ability to bang with him, I think was very important. But here's the but. I don't think it hurts him that much against the Pacers. I got to be honest with you. I don't see where his absence is going to kill you. Turner is a three-point shooter. Mitch is not great about getting out in those three-point shots. They don't have a great rebounder down there as much as Isaiah Jackson killed them down low in that first half, and thank goodness they didn't play him more late. Same thing with TJ McConnell. So I don't think Mitch's absence kills them against Indiana. I think Precious will be fine on the glass. He makes them faster. I think he'll do better in getting back in transition. And frankly, getting out in transition on offense, where the Pacers, I think, have some issues with some transition defense of their own. And I think the most important aspect of this is that it gives them a little bit more freedom on how to guard Indiana's pick and roll, which is what I kind of talked about earlier with how good their offense has been. You're much more switchable with Precious. He can switch on the guards, and I think he can frankly switch on to any one of these Pacers guards, and I think he'd be fine. I really do. So I think this does make you a little bit more switchable on defense. It hurts your offensive rebounding a little bit. It hurts your rim protection more than that. But again, I just think against a Pacer team that plays a little bit smaller, especially with the second unit, I'm not going to say it helps them, though maybe in some ways it does, but I certainly don't think it hurts them that much in this particular series, except for, again, more minutes now being put on everybody else's shoulders.
Yeah, definitely. First round series, he had a big impact. If we were to face Boston, again, I think his rebounding would be big, but again, Al Horford and KP like to bring you out. But here's where I think may hurt the Knicks if there's foul trouble. Jericho, Sims. If you're really thinking about our backup, our depth now is really suffering with the big men.
Yeah, he can't play. I mean, Jericho Sims, he's just not. It's again, he's your 11th, 12th guy, whatever you want to count him, right? And he's in an emergency, sure, but yeah, Hartenstein has to be careful now. But again, the good news is that this ain't Joel Embiid, right? Like Evan Turner's not a foul creator. He's not going one-on-one. He's a jump shooter. He got a couple posts against mismatches on switches against guards, but he's not a guy that's going to draw fouls. And quite frankly, the only Pacer player that really gets all the way to the rim consistently is Siakam. Nembhard likes to kind of pull up. Halliburton doesn't get all the way to the rim. He kind of does the floater game or does pull-ups. And, Nesmith is a three-point shooter. So they don't have these guys going to get all the way to the rim where Hartenstein's even going to pick up fouls on drivers, in my opinion. So, yes, I agree. That is a potential problem, but I don't think this is an opponent that's going to be able to take advantage of that as much as, say, Boston, which, again, you look ahead, and this is really bad if you end up playing the Celtics. And, of course, if you ever got past them. But I think against the Pacers, with the way they play, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
But yeah, here's also a food for thought, John. OG Anunoby at the 5. I like to see that a little bit. Probably for the Boston matchup, not so much for this one. But think about him guiding KP potentially out on the perimeter. That could be a good look.
Yeah, or Horford. I think he'd be fine against either one of those guys. I do worry about rebounding in those lineups, right? Anunoby, he's just not. He's fine, but he's not a great rebounder. And then, you'd have to have Harden there at the 4, obviously. but you're very small then. But yeah, look, I think, you come down to it here and you run out there at points in a game, Hart, Precious, and Anunoby all on the floor at the same time, though they give you a ton of versatility in your front court defensively where you can switch everything. You have versatility in matching up. And, we've talked about this a couple of years now. One thing that consistently held this Knicks team back was that they had a bunch of one-dimensional players. You can play one guy who was great offensively, but he can't cover, and he's going to kill you on defense. Go back, Steve Novak, whatever. You can go back to a million different guys that fit that description. Or you bring in the guy that's going to help you a lot defensively, but he is such a black hole on the offensive end that he kills you on that end, right? And now they have guys that OG, two-way player. DiVincenzo, two-way player. Josh Hart, as frustrating as his shooting woes can be sometimes, two-way player. Deuce McBride, two-way player. Mitch, I think his offensive rebound mitigates some of the offensive lacking, but Isaiah Hartenstein, two-way player. And then Brunson is so good offensively, I frankly couldn't give two craps what he does defensively at this point. So they don't have one-dimensional players anymore. That's what gives them all this flexibility to actually talk about these matchups. I mean, I remember these playoff series last couple years where you're like, well, this guy has to guard this guy, and if he can't do it, we're screwed. The Knicks can cycle. I mean, look what they did against Maxey. They cycled through three different guys. They cycled through OG, they cycled through Hart, and they cycled through DiVincenzo and McBride. So four guys, right? And all four guys had success at different points in the series. So just the way they put this roster together gives Thibodeau a lot of different options on defense.
It certainly does, but some guys do need to step up, and after game one, what are your observations now, your keys to game two for me, and then I'll give you mine.
Yeah, look, I think it's defense, right? I mean, that's where the problem was in this game. And surprisingly, it wasn't that the Pacers lit them up from three. They hit enough of them, but that wasn't what killed them. Pacers killed them in the paint. Pacers had over 60 points in the paint in that game, whether it was Nebhard or TJ McConnell or even Shepard got in there once or twice. They were getting into the paint against the Knicks pick and roll coverage at will, and they were killing them at the rim. And we're talking layups. Like, we're not even talking tough floors. We're talking like legit layups. And this wasn't all transition. Some of it came in transition, right, off steals and stuff, and and those count as paint points. But most of it, or a lot of them, were in the half court. And that's where I think the Knicks need to figure out how they're going to handle this pick and roll defense. I would mix in two things a little bit more. Right now, there's nobody on this Pacer team that I have fear of beating my good defenders one-on-one, and I have no fear in these guys hitting three-point shots off the dribble. Therese Halliburton at one point was that guy. He hasn't been that guy for months. And I have all the respect in the world for him. He's a great player, but he has not been the same since the hamstring injury, back spasms, whatever it is. He ain't the same guy.
Yeah, he's dealing with something.
He is. And you could tell he's lost confidence. He passed up shots all over the place in game one where he could have been more aggressive in taking shots. So make them beat you one-on-one, even on switches, all right? So don't overhelp, and I think the Knicks did a good job of not overhelping, which is why the three-point volume wasn't that high in game one, right? There wasn't a lot of over-rotation, open baseline shots, and most of the threes they gave up were above the break. I think they only gave up 6 of those threes were on the baseline, so I think they did a good job of that. It might have even only 4. I got to remember. But they did a good job of that. So that's switching. That's one option. And again, with Precious, you can be a little bit more switchable. And Hartenstein actually did a pretty good job switching on their guards a couple times in that game too. The other option that I like, and they did try this in game one a little bit. And by the way, the Pacers did beat switches, right? They isolated Evan Turner on a couple guards down low. He got a couple of easy baskets, but I'll roll the dice on that. The other thing I'd like to try, maybe even more than switching, is just go under the screens. If these guys want to pull up for a three-pointer behind the high screen, 2 feet behind the three-point line, and, Nemhard and, McConnell's not going to do it. Halliburton, if they start making those shots, then you adjust. Just go under the screen. Now, the Knicks did do that a bit in game one, and the Pacers are still able to get into the paint on them, which is, I just think it was, again, a letdown game for the Knicks off an emotional series. Their defensive intensity was not, and focus and attention to detail wasn't where it needed to be. So I think it was more of a lack of execution than the strategy that didn't work. So I would switch more, and I just go under the screens more and make those guards hit pull-up threes, and if they make them, you adjust. But I just don't see anyone on the Pacers that worries me in those two regards, beating a one-on-one off the dribble and making those deep pull-up threes. I just don't think they have the personnel for it right now. unless Halliburton becomes, pre-hamstring Halliburton, and there's no reason to think that's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I love your keys, John. And just to add a couple from my viewpoint, we got to punish TJ McConnell, and I think we started to do that later in the game with Brunson isolating on him, switching. He's the easiest guy Brunson can shoot over as well. I
He's
thought they
not,
were.
you know what though? But Brunson can't bully him. He's not a he's strong. He's not a terrible defender.
No, he's certainly not. But I think 1v1, you can certainly, take advantage and make him work a bit more. But in
Sure.
terms of them overplaying the guards, right? How did you see the full court pressure? We've got to get Hart and DiVincenzo to bring the ball up a little bit more. Get Brunson off ball.
Yeah, I was lazy. I mean, to me, that's just relaxing. And guys not locking in. The Pacers have done that all year. They did it in the first round against Milwaukee. They should have been ready for that, and they weren't. And I'm sure Tom Thibodeau coached them up. But until you feel it out there and you experience it the same way you have to experience that Pacers offense, I think they'll figure it out. So, yeah, I think that's a really good key. Too many of those turnovers. And the Pacers, by the way, they didn't have hardly any turnovers in the game. They were, I think, at
7.
7, right? So, I think you can probably force them into a couple more turnovers if you give them, pressure the ball a little bit and you do a better job on some of their drives. What makes me feel good about the series, to be honest with you, I don't see how the Pacers guard the Knicks. They were a poor defensive team all year, and they've already tried on pretty much every one of their defenders on Jalen Brunson, and none of them can guard him. Not a one. And it's crazy to say this, but Brunson's degree of difficulty on his shots was so low to me in this game. He got wherever he wanted on the court and got shots in rhythm that he usually makes throughout all 4 quarters. I mean, compared to the amount of work and how hard it was against Philadelphia, I hate to use the word, but this was easy for him. It was an easy 40 points. And I
And
felt like he could have put up 50 if he wanted to. That's how, the Pacers were playing a defense where they didn't want the Knicks to get open 3-point shots. And so they didn't want to double, and they let Brunson go one-on-one. Well, if they keep doing that, he's going to keep doing this. And, I mentioned that the Knicks have been better at the end of these games, and I think that's a huge key to the series, right? When the Knicks are playing close games late, they put the ball in the hands of Jalen Brunson, who is a top 10 NBA player right now. Who are the Pacers doing that with? Who are the guy they're going to trust to make a play on a high pick and roll or an isolation or a dribble handoff, whatever, at the top of the key where they trust is going to make a tough shot or make the right play to win a game for them? Who's that guy for them? It used to be Halliburton, and he was great before the injury. He could do it. But who's that guy now? So that's going to give the Knicks an advantage at the end of all these games. And the problem, frankly, for Indiana, even with that strategy, DiVincenzo got more 3-point attempts in this game than he got in any other game in all playoffs. He gets open because he moves without the ball. And Halliburton's defense was just hideous. My gosh, it wasn't just allowing open threes. Every time Hart or DiVincenzo saw him on one of them, they just took it right to the rim. And Halliburton had no answer for them. And then the Knicks got some backdoor cuts too in the first half where they got to the rim. So the Pacers really didn't stop anything. I almost thought it was weird, and I said this to my buddy at the game. The Pacers defense was so soft compared to what the Sixers defense was that it almost made the Knicks relax a little bit and play a little sloppy because they didn't have to be as locked in because the defense, everything was coming a little too easy for them. So they felt like they could relax a little bit and play a little bit looser. And I think that's where they ended up having some of their problems in the game. So that's what I'm most confident about. I would imagine the Pacers might start trapping Brunson on some of those high screening rolls in game 2 and get the ball out of his hands. But I don't think the Pacers rotate well enough off the ball where they're, you get it to Hartenstein or even Precious, since he's going to be the guy now, right? And the backup unit in that high post in that short roll, or Hart, whoever it ends up being, or Giannonobi, whoever's setting that screen. I trust that the Knicks will get layups or open threes on those 4-on-3s off the Brunson traps, basically whenever they want. So I don't know what the Pacers' answer is defensively, because I don't think they have the personnel to pull it off, to be quite frank with you.
yeah, I think there's more headaches for Indy after game 1, after what we've seen, a good start, but the Knicks just weren't locked in defensively. Once they figure out switching is key. Get those versatile defenders that can, switch on that. and the pick and roll. Once the Knicks figure that out, look, offensively, like I agree with you. I think we could have got even better looks as well. You mentioned the backdoor cuts, the way they were overplaying every single guard. I want Hartenstein there as the facilitator, and then just get backdoor if they're overplaying you. Every single Jalen Brunson cut, they were overplaying him. And then on the other side, like you said, we have to go under the screen with TJ McConnell. I really feel like make him shoot, make Halliburton shoot. Halliburton looked like he just wanted to pass last
Yep.
night.
No, I'm 1,000% with you. I think you hit it on the head. And DiVincenzo even missed two pretty easy layups in the first quarter of that game too, right? Where he took it right to the hoop, and the Knicks missed some easy shots in the first quarter. What did they have in the second half? Their offensive rating was something like 133 or some ridiculous number like that. So, the offense got better as the game went along. So, um, as close as the game was, and as fortunate as the Knicks were with some of the calls, with the kickball call and the illegal screen, we can talk about that if you want. And they did catch some breaks at the end of that game, but again, I think the overall arc of this series is something that I still think looks pretty good for the Knicks.
Yeah, we'll save that a little bit later because I think that's getting more overblown. Really, I
I'm
think
already tired of hearing about it.
yeah, the Knicks haven't gotten a fairer deal, for a long, long time, and I don't think it's justified what's been said out there. But I want to get your thoughts on the bench. We've got to get Miles McBride, and how do we deal with Isaiah Jackson, T.J. McConnell? He looks like their biggest threat, honestly.
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, like TJ, I tweeted this last night. TJ McConnell looked like Bob Cousy out there for like the first 2 or 3 quarters of the game. He's little dude running
He's
around,
always
just like
looked like Bob Cousy. Do you remember his buzzer beater with Philly over Carmelo?
he's such a pain in the ass. I mean, Josh Hart said it, man. He was right, and I think he said it in a complimentary way. He's just so pesky. He's able to get where he wants to on the floor, but to your point, you got to make him shoot, man. Like if you just make him shoot with a modicum of pressure, um, I think he's not going to make those shots, right? And Deuce McBride's got to figure that out. He got cooked by McConnell in the regular season, and he got cooked by McConnell in this playoff game. He needs to figure that out if he wants to stay on the floor. I don't know what the deal is. I know he likes to pressure the ball really tight, and maybe McConnell is just good at dealing with that. I think you play off of McConnell a little bit more, even though he's not super quick. But what is he going to do? Take step back jumpers on you if you're playing off of him? Like he doesn't have that type of game. So I'm with you. And I was thrilled that they didn't play Isaiah Jackson more in the second half. I said that to my buddy at halftime. He was grabbing offensive rebounds. And no, we found out Mitch was basically playing on one ankle. So we understand why maybe he was able to beat Mitch to a lot of those boards. But I thought he was their best front court player for a lot of this game. And then he only played a couple minutes in the second half. So, yeah. And that comes down to the bench playing better and earning those minutes. And that's the thing. If they, Tibbs, this is the playoffs, dude. Like, you don't have a long leash. You come out there, you don't play well. He did it with DiVincenzo against Philly. DiVincenzo won 2 or 3 games at Philly where he played less than 30 minutes, and Deuce played 30-something minutes because Devo wasn't playing well. He wasn't hitting shots. So he will let you play if you play well. So the bench is going to have to play well if they want to stay out there.
Yeah, and I'll reverse what people are using against the Knicks in terms of saying we're more battle hardened, battle tested. You don't think coming out of that Philly series when it's crunch time like we saw last night, John, with 3 minutes to go, and Pacers not being a great half court team, you don't think that favors the Knicks heavily? I mean, the Villanova squad, so much has been made about that, but they're battle tested.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to feel pressure. They're not going to wilt. They're going to keep fighting. And the Knicks have the best player in the series, Jalen Brunson. And more often than not, and Lord knows only the Knicks only play close games. It's not like one of these games is going to be 10 points one way or the other. They're all going to be close games. And when you have the best player in the series, that's going to give you a huge advantage in those close games. So, look, you figure Brunson's going to have a bad shooting game just by the odds at some point here. It might not even be because of the Pacers' defense. It might just be because he is an off night. I think that's possible. But I mean, I like my chances with him and the ball in his hands against whomever the Pacers are going to run their offense through. So I'm with you, and I think the experience against Philly really helps these guys, and they're comfortable. Remember, last year against Miami, too, there's a lot of the same group. I know OG is new and stuff like that, and DiVincenzo, but remember, he went on a playoff run with the Warriors before his injury. So, Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think anything that the Pacers throw at this team is going to phase them one bit. And frankly, I don't think the Pacers still quite understand the level of intensity the Knicks can bring for 48 minutes, because they didn't bring that level of intensity of 48 minutes in that first game. And if they do in game two, I think that could rattle Indiana a little bit. And they're more susceptible to a bad shooting game than the Knicks are. Like if the Pacers shoot bad, they're cooked. The Knicks can at least, I think, mitigate a bad shooting game because of their offensive rebounding and because of their defense.
Yeah, they'll just spam the leak out with the fast breaks, Obi, cheap points, and they'll just try to speed things up. I'm already prepared for games 3 and 4 in Indiana to just be a track meet, because I think that's their best chance. And specifically the bench, I think Mitch, again, John, you clearly look limited. I think that hurt our bench lineups. Put Precious Achua in there. I'm really looking forward to seeing what adjustments Tibbs makes, because I think they will look at the film on TJ McConnell, and I think Deuce McBride, they'll figure something out.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I like the adjustment to put Hart on McConnell in the second half. Hart's smart. He's longer. He's physical, and I thought he did a better job on him in the second half than McBride did. But being a shorter defender, and it's funny. I think pace is a big deal too. But I think if you protect the ball and you don't turn it over, I think you'll be okay. The Pacers have played a little bit slower in the postseason. They're only about league average in the postseason so far in terms of pace. So, if again, long defensive rebounds, turnovers, steals, things like that, they'll run. But from what we've seen so far in the playoffs, it's not been this crazy breakneck pace that I think we saw from them in the regular season. And I wonder how much of that, frankly, is Halliburton not being able to run as well, right? Because of the hamstring or whatever, his back, whatever it is that's bothering him. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think pace is something you got to look out for. Maybe that's why you got to play the bench a little bit more. But so far in the postseason, the Pacers have not been running quite as much as they did in the regular season. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and if you're putting your ideal rotation in, how much do you think Precious should play? Hart 48 minutes. Do you think we're going to continue to see that?
Yeah,
Because
I
he's
mean,
he's been
I don't think
outstanding, John. Like you were there in the building. Could you even see any moment where he was like breathing or he was hands on his hips? Did he just look like he could just keep going?
it's the Mike and Ikes. I mean, I think that's what it is, right? I mean, he just popping the Mike and Ikes and he's just going and going. I don't know. It's amazing though. You're right, and Nick fans gave Josh Hart a lot of grief at points this year, and sometimes rightfully so. He did not play well for a good span earlier in the year. Right now, Josh Hart's the Knicks' second best player, and frankly, I don't. And I know this is crazy with the way OG and Anunoby defends, but do you disagree? I think right now Josh Hart's this team's second best player. I mean, the
He's
way
the
he
second
rebounds
most
and plays defense, and
indispensable.
he's scoring almost 20 points a game. He's playing 48 minutes. I mean, what he's doing is incredible, and he's been great. I mean, I don't know how anyone can say a bad word about the dude. He's been fantastic.
He's the second most invaluable, like indispensable player. Like last night we lose. You take Hart off the court. He was that spark plug so many times, and he just plays with no fear. When he was ability to get downhill, charge into Miles Turner and draw that and one. That was a game changer for me last night.
And by the way, I will say this because I got mad at him a couple times. Don't stop on your drives. Like he did that a couple of times. He gets over to the hoop and he was afraid he was going to get blocked or something. Dude, just go up. Maybe you'll get fouled if you get blocked, and maybe someone gets an offensive rebound. He would try to stop. One of those turned into a turnover that turned into, I think it was one of the Obi dunks when he tried to throw it out. And then he got called for a travel on another one. Dude, just when you get to the hoop, just go up. Go up. If you get blocked, I don't care. This just stop and try to pass thing. No good. Just try to go finish. And look, I don't. The one thing I think I know is that he's playing 46 to 48 minutes. Like, unless he's in foul trouble, Tom Thibodeau and him, it's almost a running joke between them now, right? Like, they're like, oh, yeah, no, he's not coming out. And he's like, yeah, I know, I'm not coming out. And they seem to be okay with it.
Like I said, you're ready. If you're not hungry, 11 more wins. The Knicks are lifting the Larry O'Brien. So it's like, rest. You can get that on the off season right now. You play, you train, you dream of being in these moments right now to do it. Look, again, like we addressed with the Mitch thing, unfortunate but his conditioning wasn't where it needed to be. And I wish him well on his recovery, and hopefully he's good to go for the start of the starting preseason game.
Yeah,
But
he should
the
be. And by
way,
the way, Precious is going to play minimum 20 minutes, right? I mean, you figure, maybe Hartenstein could play 33 minutes, right? So I think minimum 15 for Precious. If you want to mix him in at the 4 a little bit, maybe he gets up to 20. If he plays well, maybe Hartenstein only plays 25 and Precious plays 23. If Hartenstein's in foul trouble, maybe that, goes even more the other way. So um, maybe we'll see Burks for a couple minutes. Maybe. I see a couple people in the chat here saying, guys, Shake Milton ain't playing. Like, I'm sorry. A lot of bad stuff's going to happen for Shake Milton to see the court. Like, the guy didn't play one meaningful minute for the Knicks in the regular season. If you think they're putting Shake Milton in to one of these playoff games, you're out of your minds. It's not happening. Burks is a Tibbs guy, though. I think deep down, Tibbs trusts Burks. So I think you have a shot at that. But again, my guess is that they're not going to change much until they lose a game and Tibbs decides he has to change something because so far what he's been doing has been working.
yeah, if we do see Burks, and I agree with you, Burks is ahead of Milton. Although I disagree. In terms of talent, I want to see Milton, but I've already accepted the fact that Milton is not ahead because he didn't play him in the regular season as well. That pickup was just for insurance.
Yeah.
However, if he does play Burks, I see it happening games 3 and 4 because we're fresh off a 3-day break. The players are the most freshest that they're going to be. As the series goes, yeah, we'll see what happens as well. But look, Josh Hart's has been outstanding. He's in excellent conditioning. How about that rebound where he pulled his own rebound? Like, you can't make that up.
On his own
Like,
free throw. I mean, come on. He jumped over Miles Turner for a rebound in the third quarter of that game. I mean, he's unbelievable. And look, maybe something weird happens, right? Maybe someone gets into foul. Maybe DiVincenzo picks up 3 first half fouls. God forbid, maybe Josh Hart does. And then Burks has to play, right? Then you don't have a choice. And then if he plays well, then maybe Thibodeau's like, all right, you showed me something. You've earned your time. Now we're going to give you a little bit more. So remember, no one thought Precious was going to play against Philly, and that was game 4, right? When the Knicks went up 3-1 in that series. So he went in because he had to. That wasn't a choice thing, and it worked. So we'll see. Maybe, God forbid, the Knicks can't afford any more injuries. But foul trouble or something else that Burks has to go in, he proves himself, and then he'll find himself back in the rotation. Who knows?
yeah, look, Mitch only played 11 minutes, so if we play Precious 20 or 18, that's going to give OG a little bit more rest for other guys. And guys, our best hope is to close this series out in 4 or 5. Just go hell for leather and close them out early. Win game 2, try to steal one in Indy, and then it's a wrap. And then we're talking about a few wins away from the NBA Finals. So it's like I get the concern guys have and guys' health first and foremost. Mitchie, his injury wasn't a product of the playoffs. It was well before that. I was so shocked that he came back, John, because that surgery where he had a bolt, a screw inserted in his foot, a lot of players would have just mailed it in and said, "I'll be back next year."
Yeah, both Mitch and Bogey, both of their injuries have nothing to do with the amount of minutes they were playing. 0 point 0. Nothing to do with them. Embiid fell on Mitch's ankle, and who fell on Bogdanovich's ankle? I'm trying to remember who it was in that series. Batum, right on that fast break. He fell on the back of Bogey's foot, and he broke his foot. I mean, that wasn't a broken foot. It was the Lisfranc, which is even worse, by the way. That is not a good injury. And boy, could they use Bogey in this series, stretching the floor, hitting those threes, man. And you can hide him very easily on some of these Pacers guards. Put him on Nesmith, who just kind of sits back there and shoots. You're fine. That Bogey injury hurts in this series. They could really, really use him.
Yep, OG at the 5 in some, maybe next series, hopefully, and Precious get his minutes up. Your predictions, John, like, I know you're still confident. How early do you think the Knicks close this one out, or do you have to see game 2 and 3 to really see whether they can sweep or gentlemen sweep?
Yeah, I had Knicks in 6 before the series just because this Knicks team doesn't do anything easy, and they're going to figure out a way to make it more interesting than it should be. I thought the Knicks were legit favorites heading into the series. Again, just because big picture, bad defensive teams generally don't do well in the playoffs. nor do teams that don't have a go-to player to win close games late. And I think those are the two things that will hold the Pacers back long term in this series. I'm sure we'll get a game when the Knicks can't hit a shot and the Pacers get hot and the Pacers will win that game. Maybe that'll happen twice, and that's how it gets to 6. But overall, in these close games, I just have much more confidence in the Knicks executing with Brunson than the Pacers. And again, I just think the Knicks will get. They've been getting. I think they'll get easy shots all series, just because the Pacers' defense is not good. And rarely do you see a team that was poor defensively during the year just all of a sudden start defending well in the postseason. It doesn't work that way generally. So again, Pacers are a really good offensive team. Rick Carlisle is a really good coach. They'll figure out a way to win a game or two with their offense. But I think when all is said and done, I still feel pretty good about the Knicks closing this thing out in 6 and potential. I would say more likely 5 than 7, but I would still stick with 6.
Yeah, me too. I think I'm feeling more confident it could be a 5, but I did predict 6. However, game 2 is pivotal. Close them out. And like we said, man, I think the Knicks will be looking for that third round. Boston smashing Cleveland tonight. That is going to be a huge matchup if the Knicks can get there as well. But we've got to take care of business, John.
Hey, look, that's hard. I mean, look, I don't want to look at the Boston either because the Pacers are a good basketball team and they're going to give the Knicks a lot of trouble here. And we're going to have some stressful moments in this series. They're coming. It might even come in game 2. Who knows? But the Celtics are legit good. If they do get that far, if they figure out a way to beat Indiana, that to me is a no pressure series. You're going in there, everyone's expecting you to lose. You're going in there with nothing to lose, even though you're the 2 seed. You got all these injuries, no Randall. I mean, the Celtics are going to be heavy favorites in that series. So I think for a change, it'll be nice heading into that series, feeling like the underdog, and you don't have much to lose, and everyone's expecting you to lose. And I think this Knicks team will embrace that role. Again, if they get there, Indiana's a good basketball team. Let's not look past them. But I think that'll be a much different type of series where you cannot just let it fly. The Celtics are great. You're shorthanded. Just go in there, let it all hang out, and see what happens.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, yeah, it's been awesome chopping it up, John, and look forward to talking later as hopefully the playoffs buzz continues for us, making history with Jalen Brunson and these Knicks. Yeah, great to have you on, and be well.
No, I appreciate it, man. And just watching these guys has been they're such an easy team to root for, and they're so much fun, and Brunson's so good. So Knicks fans, enjoy the ride. That's all I'll say.
Definitely, and great work on the Giants content, the draft as well. Let everyone know where they can find more content.
No, absolutely. If you got Knicks fans out there that are also Giant fans, we did a bunch of stuff on the draft. We got our podcast. Check out the Giants Huddle podcast. We're still doing that 2 or 3 times a week. Big Blue Kickoff Live is our daily live show every day at 12:30. All the draft picks are in the house. Rookie minicamps coming up this weekend. Schedule release is probably coming next week now, so stay tuned to those podcasts and download them, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, 5-star reviews, whatever you do. If you're a Knicks fan, go check them out.
Yep, amazing. Yep, well, let's go Knicks. Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Let's go Knicks, baby.
Yep, let's go. John Schmeelk, ladies and gentlemen, doing great work with the New York Giants and the New York Knicks, season ticket holder in the building for all these games. CT rocking out with the chat right now. Going to give a few thoughts before we wrap up and shout you guys out as well. You guys are amazing, and yeah, Knicks Nation has really come together for this playoff run as we knew they would, fam. Jay Boogie in the building. Puppy, what's up, chat? Jay Boogie got some amazing work coming out. The playoff anthem, the Knicks Symphony, will be out on all platforms this week. Jay Boogie, love your work. Keep it coming, man. And great to talk. We'll talk soon. Game 1, my thoughts, man. It was close for comfort. I do think the Knicks will be better as each game goes along. I think, as I said, man, I think this was the easiest game for the New York Knicks to potentially lose. Road team coming in, house money, all of that. No adjustments yet. And I think Indiana, once again, I give them credit because, they gave the Knicks their best game, I felt, in terms of the season. OG Anunoby, the first time that these two teams have matched up with OG as well. They played loose. The Knicks weren't on their game early defensively. However, we did come to play in the second half. The final quarter, the Knicks' execution was better. Can still be better, but it was better than the Pacers. Obviously defense, the Knicks need to get better. Mitchie, got to talk about the news. Mitchell Robinson out for 6 to 8 weeks, re-injuring, getting a stress reaction on that ankle, fam. And Mitchie also tweeting some stuff out as well, which we have to address. Mitch did tweet out some stuff saying, tough break, why is it happening? And just this frustration coming out, and you could feel the hurt because Mitchie's come all the way back, rehabilitation, trying to help this team. You're right, he's a hero for me, given it his all. He's a hustle player and leaves it all out there as well. And he's definitely helped us win some games in the first series, the first round. But we got to keep moving. We've got to keep moving forward, man. 3 more wins and we close this series out. Hopefully, Precious Achiuwa, Jericho Sims, next man up, right? I think it's obviously going to be Precious first. Sims will probably remain situational still. But Precious Achiuwa, we know what he can do. He's had chances throughout the season. He's great defensively, can switch, can be a help blocker as well. A really versatile player as well. He can hit the J. It's his time to shine, right? Next man up. And I think for this matchup, like you guys were saying, I think he could be a more favourable matchup just for this series. Miles Turner, Isaiah Jackson, live bodies, can pull the guys out from the paint, and no doubt he's more mobile, right? And even when Mitchie's at full health, he's still not as mobile as a Precious Achiuwa. So forgetting the injury aside, Precious Achiuwa still could be the better matchup for this series, but he's going to have to come to play. He's going to have to earn more minutes. I think he'll come in at probably 10, 15 minutes. Like John said, the better he plays, the more he might play. Too, fam. We've got Puppy Zef in the building from France. Appreciate you. Let us know the keys for Game 2, and I will shout it out as well. Nick Batum, I think he might be thinking about retirement, but he had a pretty solid series against the Knicks. But I do think the Knicks will be familiar with who they've got, to close this series out. Miles McBride's used to playing a lot of minutes. Guys are just in that rhythm right now, and it's hard to disrupt that. Right? I know people want, Tibbs to expand the rotation a lot more, worried about players' health and all of that. It's a real concern, no doubt. I do think, though, however, with the rhythm guys are in, it's hurtful for the performance-wise just to bring an Alec Burks in, for 10, 15 minutes. He wasn't playing well even when, he was playing. And to think that he can just come in and really, get up to speed. Defensively, he was really poor. I know he could help us with the shot making and stretching the floor out a little bit. But, we're just going to have to get Miles McBride going, get some production from him. Josh Hart's been shooting the 3 ball really well, career high levels. DiVincenzo, 2 back-to-back huge games in a row for Dante. And I think that's great for the Knicks' chances of closing this thing out early, fam. We know Brunson's going to give us a 40-point performance, right? The betting has his line at 37.5 over-under going into Game 1. So even the Vegas and the betting odds have got him, on this burner still, and no signs of him coming back down as well. Where are the other points going to come from, though? Look, if DiVincenzo can continue to give us 20, Hart through his rebounding, pushing the break, I think catching Indiana's defense napping is going to be key as well, because that could be a cheap 10, 15 points right there as well. And then getting to the line, Hart could give us another 20 as well. My key, though, coming in, man, my X factors were Devo and Isaiah Hartenstein, because Isaiah can really open things up for the New York Knicks a lot, playmaking-wise. I want us to get him going with the other guys cutting. Like I said to John, I thought all the Pacer guards were overplaying the New York Knicks guards, and there's one way to counter that, is basically just be ready to cut backdoor, let them overplay you, and then punish them with the backdoor cuts too. But But yeah, I feel you with the cardiac finishes being hard on our hearts. But when we pull out the win, there's no greater feeling. Guys coming in. Margaret, salute. Deuce is the key. I mean, his importance has just gone up even more now with our bench being, even more depleted. No Mitchie now. Mitchie could still give us 8 to 10 points. So we're going to have to, find ways to get Deuce going a little bit more. I love to see him play a little bit with Brunson as well. Give Devo or Hart a rest. That way there's another guy who can guard on the perimeter as well and get after it. I think Tyrese Halliburton is limited, as we said with John. He doesn't look like he's at his 100% health. Back spasms. He's not using that as an excuse. So, credit to him in Indiana. But he doesn't look like he's at his best. So we do need to run him around. And I think it's important that Deuce or Brunson can try to punish TJ McConnell defensively as well. Not saying that TJ McConnell is a bad defender, because he's not. But what I mean by, punish him in terms of don't just let him go to work offensively, make him work defensively as well. He is a 6'1" guard. He is undersized himself, and it's important that we try to make him work. So that is key. I thought Aaron Neesmith was big with a couple of drives to the cup. And also Ben Shepherd got loose for a couple of open threes. So hopefully the Knicks can tighten up their rotations, close out on their shooters better. One thing we did well, though, we limited Miles Turner in the pick and pop. Miles Turner didn't hurt us as much as I thought he could in terms of the perimeter shots, but he was able to get loose into the paint. But I think, Mitchie wasn't moving as well as obviously as we hoped, and of course Isaiah didn't have a great game defensively too. So Isaiah Jackson is a real threat. Obi, a lot of film to watch, and we have to be on alert for those guys to leak out, and get those easy points, fam. But I do think Game 2 is going to be a little bit more comfortable for the New York Knicks in terms of closing it out. I think Game 1 was Indiana's best chance in terms of stealing one. Game 2 it'll still be competitive, well contested. I don't see any game in this series being a big blowout or anything, but I just think it's going to be a little bit more in control. I think the New York Knicks will have a lot they can pull from Game 1. I think what Indiana will try to do, though, is they'll try to get Halliburton a little bit more aggressive if he's feeling better. I think TJ McConnell, they'll go back to that, see if he can handle more of the scoring load, get downhill, and see if they can get the shooters going as well. Miles Turner, they might try to find him some easier looks as well. But I thought Pascal Siakam gave them a real good game. I don't see if they can get a whole lot more from Pascal. He did torch OG earlier in the ball game, 1v1. OG Anunoby started to guard better, adjusting on him, and came up with 3 critical stops as well. One on Halliburton with the strip, another one in guarding Pascal straight up into the paint. That was a big time defensive stop for OG as well. Guys, I still think it's going to be 6. However, last night made me feel a little bit more like there's a chance of 5. Obviously, the Knicks winning 1, they've only got to win 3 more. So, we win tomorrow, take care of Game 2, head over to Indiana full of confidence like we did against Philly, and try to win one in their building. And I think that is going to be key to obviously finishing it early in 5. Today, we had Boston Celtics smash Cleveland by 25 points in Game 1. I see Cleveland winning 1 game at best. So I think that is going to go 5. Boston might get a little bit rest, but we'll see. I'm still feeling confident the Knicks get through. But Mitchie, the blow to lose him is certainly, a tough bit of news. The New York Knicks now, they're not as strong without Mitch. Precious Achiuwa's not the same level rebounder or rim protector, but what can you do, man? It's next guy up. And look, Precious has had some great moments this season. He is an experienced player. Hopefully he steps up, to the moment. But I think in terms of his profile, his switchability, versatility, it might end up being better for us this series in terms of just the matchups. To He's a free agent, yeah. Precious Achua too. Uh, Let me know how many games you think it will take. Let me know when the New York Knicks will close this one out. Do you think 5, 6, 7? I think in terms of how the games go, obviously execution, I think, is in the Knicks' favor down the stretch. We have a point guard who, has been on a crazy tear. Halliburton's form has not been great, coming in, obviously with some injury limitations as well. He's had an outstanding season as well. But in terms of the two best players and the levels that Brunson is playing at versus the level of Halliburton, Indiana do need to get a better performance out of Halliburton to steal one in New York. Now, on the road for the Knicks in Indiana, it could be a different story. The role players generally do come to play a bit better on the road, and I think certainly they've got a lot of threats. Indiana, Obi can get loose for 20. Smith can have a better shooting night as well. TJ McConnell might just continue to do what he's doing as well. But I think all the games will still be close. The Knicks just seem to find a way to get points. They'll grind you down. They'll get the rebounds, third, fourth opportunities. They'll get the other team into foul trouble as well with their aggression. And I think the Knicks, one of the biggest surprises last night, guys, was that the New York Knicks won the fast break points too, which is absolutely unbelievable. If we look at it, as I pull it up right now, the Knicks, narrowly though, but won the fast break points. That's not something that I would have predicted going in as well. But obviously in the half court, Pacers were a little better in the first half, but the Knicks adjusted to second chance points. No surprise, fam, with 50 rebounds, out rebounding the Pacers by 12. They got more second chance points. Josh Hart, man, another salute to him. He had arguably his best game of his career, and I keep saying that because he just keeps raising the bar. I mean, what is there left for Josh Hart to do? He's had amazing three-point shooting games. His career high rebounding. He's handling the ball, which I like, but I do want to see that a little bit more. Like we said with John tonight, guys, I think it's key that Brunson doesn't bring the ball up the court all the time. That is my number one key heading in. Right, you got to keep Brunson as fresh as possible. Get Hart, get Deuce, get DiVincenzo bringing the ball up. There was even that moment where Isaiah brought the ball up the floor of fam, and that resulted in a and one play for Isaiah Hartenstein, and that was big. That resulted in a and one play for Josh Hart, who was able to run down the paint. And Miles Turner had to rotate where they did overplay Isaiah and that one. So that caught them napping. So if the Knicks can be as unpredictable as possible and not just, ride Jalen Brunson 1v1, but just to try to throw a spanner in the work, get Brunson off ball a little bit, play him with Deuce McBride as well, just to shake things up defensively for Indiana. I think that'll be key, and then that'll help obviously get DiVincenzo and OG Anunoby more loose on the catch and shoots as well. What are you guys thinking? Margaret says Knicks need to win game 2 tomorrow due to the lack of bench play. 100% agree. I think the New York Knicks winning the first 2 will give them a lot more momentum heading into Indiana, and hopefully close the series out earlier. But it'll also help with the lack of depth we have. I mean, that is the clear advantage for Indiana right now in terms of the depth that they've got, the bodies, and the players coming in with TJ McConnell, Jackson, Obi Toppin, and Ben Shepherd. They're going 9 deep, whereas the Knicks now got to basically go 7, 6.5, 7. I don't know if he's even going to play Precious Achua a lot. we'll wait to see, fam. But look, one thing to look out for, as I stated, is that the New York Knicks, at this current juncture, at this current point, they are more fresh than they will be later in the series because they had a 3-day layoff. And as the series goes, they are going to be more gas. So if you are going to play a shorter rotation, now is that time. See how it goes. Try to get up 3-0. Try to get up 2-0. And then you might have the comfort to introduce an Alec Burks, into the fold, into the mix, right? I think right now Tibbs is only worried about the current day, and winning game 2, and obviously, piling more pressure onto to Indy. Knicks 24 champs wants to give Jericho Sims some burn. I think Jericho will be the next man up, in terms of, foul trouble or anything that happens, but I don't see it happening. I think Precious getting in will alleviate Mitch being out. I think Precious can at least play 20 minutes. But yeah, Jericho, he is that bigger body. He might play more against Boston if the Knicks can get to that round. But I think against this team, he is solid on the perimeter. I guess he could stick with a Miles Turner on the pick and pop. But I think Tibbs does trust Precious a bit more too. Yeah, we saw Pat Riley's shot at Jimmy Butler, puppy. I did see that. I think that could be leading towards a fractured relationship there. I think Miami will be looking to make some wholesale changes, fam. There's talks that they'll be interested in Donovan Mitchell. I think Miami does need to shake some things up, man, because they are in Cancun right now, while the Knicks are buzzing right now. Great show. Good to preview game 2. Let's hope it's not as cardiac a finish. Knicks Nation will be in the building heavy. Celebrity Row. You guys worldwide rocking out. We'll be live post-game tomorrow night as well. Let's hope we're talking about a 2-0 lead, and hopefully everything went swimmingly with the rotation. Precious getting in. Prayers up once again for Mitchie. He's a hero to me. I appreciate what Mitch has done to get back for the Knicks and help us in the first round series. It was always a dicey situation with that injury as well. It was a very serious leg injury, but I do think that Mitch will be back next season as well. He's on a very good contract. He's a very, very valuable player, and the best center tandem with him and Isaiah Hartenstein. But I think he obviously wasn't in the best form of health, and it's best that he now can recover and rest, and hopefully nothing too serious with that. It's a 6 to 8 week evaluation for the recent stress reaction on the ankle or the foot. But he's a big man, and those are tricky as well. So thankfully we did get Precious Achiuwa in that trade, and he could just come up to be huge for the Knicks moving forward in this playoff run. We do have Jericho Sims, like Knicks 24 champ says. If we do need to call on Jericho, then we will. But yeah, the Bojan Bogdanovic injury was tough too, because he would have really lit Indiana up, I think, in this series. He was in great form as well. But Alec Burks, I think he'll be the other guy that we might see at some point this series. If he does get a shot, I'm rooting for him, man. I hope he can splash a few threes, play solid defense. But he's not been playing well coming in into the playoffs to begin. He's dealing with a shoulder concern as well. So he's not at 100% either. So it just further highlights, guys, how important it is to close this series out as early as possible, because, man, the number is 11. 11 more wins, and the Knicks are the NBA champions, right? If you dream, you believe, it's possible. The Knicks, with every single dub, every single win, we are getting closer and closer to making history, fam. And these guys, they got the city behind them, they got the fan base, the world buzzing, and a momentum is rolling right now like an avalanche, like a juggernaut, fam. And the New York Knicks are inspired by their support, and the players are just leaving it all out there as well. How far can they go remains to see, but I'll love to see that Boston matchup. Hopefully the Knicks can get past this gritty, pesky Pacers team, who I do think are probably a year ahead of in terms of getting more success, a year ahead of their time. And I think the time right now is for the New York Knicks. Let's go Knicks. And I do think we close this one out in at least 6. And then we can fully focus on the third round. Now we've got some more guests lined up coming through later in the week. Stay tuned as well. If you're new here, welcome. Appreciate you coming on and supporting us. Let us know your thoughts in the chat, the comment section. We'll shout you out. I'll reply to the comments. And the streets are buzzing. Smash that like button. And we'll see you tomorrow night.